Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. This is part 2 for this news report. Today I'm ready to go cover the economy and maybe some eugenics. Global markets fall in wake of Federal Reserve announcement. This is probably part of the design. Global markets have plunged following the announcement by the U.S. Federal Reserve that it may begin to cut back on its stimulus of the U.S. economy later this year. So this is what corporatism is all about. Again, taxpayers, you foot the bill. When you're talking about privatizing the profits and socializing the losses. Greek bonds plunge as ruling coalition partner pulls out and withdraws ministers. As reported yesterday, Greece has stormed right back to the top of the crisis charts, not only due to the reported news that the IMF may be withholding further payments until Greece finally gets its house in order, it says here, but because as a result of the fallout surrounding the national broadcaster ERT, the coalition government is now in tatters. Moments ago, it says here that the Democratic left officials who spoke on the Greek TV said that the party decided to withdraw its ministers from the coalition government and prime ministers. And of course, there's two words to basically say about that article, and that's Golden Dawn. They're probably going to benefit them. Banking Commission: bankers should face threat of jail and losses of bonuses. Senior bankers should face jail and the loss of millions of pounds in bonuses if they are involved in future banking collapse, according to a report by cross-party group of MPs and peers. This is, of course, in the UK. Former Enron CEO Skilling sentence cut to 14 years. It was originally 24 years. The defendant agrees to stop appealing conviction. Enron collapsed in 2001. It's a better outcome than Enron founder Kenneth Lay, who was found guilty of multiple counts of conspiracy and fraud, who died of a heart attack or heart failure 6 weeks after the trial ended. Putin supports bill granting amnesty to white-collar criminals. So he urged lawmakers Friday to pass a newly drafted bill that would grant, it says here, an amnesty to white-collar criminals in a bid to improve Russia's frigid business climate at a time of slowing growth. This is an older article from February 25th, 2013. Iran sentences 4 bankers to death in nation's biggest fraud case. The last mystery of the financial crisis, talking about rating systems. It's long been suspected that ratings agencies like Moody's and Standard & Poor's helped trigger the meltdown. A new trove of embarrassing documents show how they did it. Isn't it true that almost none of the frauds that swallowed Wall Street in the past decade could have taken place without companies like Moody's and Standard & Poor's rubber stamping? So we're talking about sharing the responsibility. A Club of Rome founder proposed global matrix of manufactured consent. Environmental think tank aspired to global matrix of manufactured consent. It says here, recently unearthed documents from the private collection of former diplomat and Bilderberg regular George McGahey have revealed, among other things, that the Club of Rome in 1970 wanted to create a global matrix approach, or G-matrix, as a means of bringing people into environmental or enviro-eugenicist mindset globally. Most of you know that what the Club of Rome is, a think tank. It actually advocates worldwide population reduction and global environmental governance. In regards to population reduction and engineering consent, it says here, through a comprehensive process, writes this individual, mankind can gradually attain a value-based consensus and avoid the prospects of critical future situations. The uncovered document says here that it states outright that the club has sought to manufacture a consensus in all layers of society in regards to the conclusions of the club's report published in the 1970s. Most of you have already heard this quote, but I'll read it and leave it with you. In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers are caused by human intervention, and it is only through changed attitudes and behavior that they can be overcome. The real enemy, then, is humanity itself. This is, of course, the first global revolution report to the Club of Rome, talking about creating a common purpose and climate change, using climate change, global warming. Obama taps former IMF official as national security deputy. So pretty interesting. Carolyn Atkinson, a former journalist who's worked for the IMF, the U.S. Treasury Department, and the Bank of England, to be deputy national security advisor for international economics. So that's the international usury system. FBI director candidate Comey, can't make that up, right? Complicit in dark chapter in U.S. history. The former deputy attorney played a leading role in the cover-up of U.S. government informants participating in mass murder in Mexico. This is who Obama is expected to nominate. I think he just did, as the next director of FBI. This was a Bush-era official as well. But it is Comey who now serves on the board of the giant British lender HSBC. Basically, this guy was he was actually working there and stuff when the drug cartels were laundering their money through the banks, and they got a slap on the wrist by the U.S. Department of Justice. So there you go. He headed that money laundering for the drug cartels. New FBI chief. FBI chief demands broader surveillance powers. Says current internet surveillance still does not satisfy officials. I think Merkel was just quoted in Germany, was quoted saying that it was undiscovered territory or uncharted territory, the internet. I guess they want to make it out to be very scary. So FBI chief wants broader surveillance. Remember this, I just covered this. FBI director admits domestic use of drones for surveillance. So there's drone surveilling, that means there must be drones in the air. FBI has received aviation clearance for at least 4 domestic drone operations since 2010. Is the national security agency behind BitCoin? So, grassroots, 3D printing grassroots. WikiLeaks grassroots. Recently, a 1996 NSA report surfaced predicting a crypto cyber unit eerily close to Bitcoin, so close that knowing your MO, the question arises whether this report is a prediction or a plan. So, yeah, it's some of the stuff I heard about it that was building up around it prior to this Bitcoin thing. Reports that were promoting was saying how, it was you're going to have privacy. These people actually believe that you're going to have privacy or something with it. All right, then you have Senate poised to okay $30 billion for defense contractors and border surge. A military-style buildup along the U.S. border with Mexico, doubling the number of agents on the ground and tripling the number of drones overhead. But what about Canada, right? We've heard about roving brigades or just units working together, Canada, United States, crossing borders and that, joint exercises, joint tactics. The integration of Canada into the U.S.-dominated North American security perimeter. So Canada's Prime Minister recently addressed the Council on Foreign Relations, much like, it's kind of like the Club of Rome, a globalist think tank, who has been a driving force behind the push towards a deeper North American integration. They're now further advancing this agenda through the Beyond the Border Agreement, increasing bilateral border transportation and infrastructure coordination. This is what I was talking about. They are also integrating an information sharing system that would be used to track everyone crossing the U.S.-Canada border and entering or leaving the continent. So, Iran says Canada under influence of Zionist regime. They've condemned the Canadian government as being under the influence of the Zionist regime following Ottawa's decision to suspend diplomatic relations with Tehran. This is from June 3rd. Iran's foreign ministry was quoted by Voice of America saying Tehran will give an adequate reply to Canada's extremist government in due course. So Foreign Minister John Beard specifically said that Iran's hostility towards Israel was a major factor in his government's decision. In other words, any country that is opposed to Zionist supremacism is a threat to world peace. The Zionist state is, of course, the greatest threat to world peace. Not those who oppose it, but in the upside-down and hypocritical world of Jewish supremacism, any sort of lie and distortion goes. UK countryside suffers shocking poverty. A risking number of food banks have been set up across the UK to help poor people cope with the soaring cost of living, but less is heard about deprived Britons in the countryside. That will cost them an extra £40, while gas and electricity forces them to pay an additional £20 a week compared to their city counterparts. Forced depopulation of America's rural areas. So Agenda 21 calls for dramatically increasing urbanization and forcing indigenous populations out of rural areas and into densely populated stack-and-pack micro-apartments controlled by technocrats with the ability to control every aspect of one's life. When completed, this lifestyle will be hell on earth. And we covered this as well. China's great uprooting, moving 250 million into cities. They look at the Chinese government-driven effort to push the population to towns and cities is reshaping a nation that for millenniums has been defined by its rural life. It's freedom, right? It says here this micro home pushes the boundaries for off-the-grid tiny living. So it says here it's about 81 square feet. I would imagine this would be for people that are living in rural areas. Death penalty threat for polluters in China. The death penalty is usually imposed for corruption and other economic crimes, but polluters in China could soon face a death penalty after authorities stepped up the court's powers to punish firms who carry out the grievous environmental crimes. Official says water complaints could be active terrorism. Mount Pleasant is in Tennessee, I believe. A community says that the state is attempting to silence its complaints. Tennessee Department of Environment, blah, blah, blah. Deputy Director warned a group of Maury County residents that unfounded complaints about water quality could be considered an act of terrorism. Remember, those who protest fracking, hydraulic fracking for natural gas and oil, are treated as the same as insurgents, as terrorists. So protesters are also treated like terrorists. So it's like I said when I first started GGN back in 2010, was that it's pretty simple. We're all terrorists. You know what I mean? You look at Dr. Kaku's mission in the 3 types of extraterrestrials. He basically calls fundamentalists, traditionalists, anyone that stands in the way of this global corporatized empire that's going to go towards transhumanism is terrorists. So I take that as a threat, and I take it very seriously, right? Like he takes it very seriously. Pesticides slash water life by 42%. Pesticides may kill off water insects and other small aquatic life by as much as 42%. EPA refuses to finalize study blaming fracking for water pollution. So the EPA is supposed to protect the environment, right? It's dropped its plans to further investigate whether or not fracking led to the contamination of a Wyoming aquifer. They have no plans to write a report on the matter. Singapore smoke hits life-threatening levels. Authorities attempting to seed clouds. That's the main story, right? So they warn that pollution is at hazardous record-high levels due to peatland wildfires. So now they're going to start spraying, seeding the rain clouds. One thing I'll give China and Russia is that they both admit that they're at least cloud seeding, that they're carrying out weather modification, where the U.S. just calls it conspiracy theories. Now you have to worry about third-hand smoke too, so don't worry about all the other stuff, the chemtrails, the fluoride in the water, the pesticides in the water. You have to worry about third-hand smoke, that's right. And you get people like this, right? It says here that, do what? Ban it now and prosecute the criminal tobacco pushers. Well, they're not pushing it, you're buying it. Pushing vaccines on people, yes, they are criminals and they should be prosecuted, but see, mind-controlled zombies like this, they don't get it. Actually, in the EU, just in the last couple of days, they're trying to ban menthol cigarettes. Yeah, menthol, I mean, it's pretty bad for you, because any corporate cigarettes that aren't organic, that really aren't, are going to be 10 times as bad as that. So, but that just sets a precedent. So you can ban one, you can ban them all. Buzzkill, huge bee die-off in Oregon parking lot blamed on insecticide spraying. National Pollinator Week began grimly Sunday when tens of thousands of dead bumblebees, honeybees, ladybugs, and other insects were discovered blanketing a shopping plaza's parking lot just off Interstate 5. It says here they were literally falling out of the trees. They said it's one of the largest documented bumblebee deaths in western U.S. It was heartbreaking to watch. They turned out that landscapers had sprayed the lot's 65 European linden trees on Saturday with the insecticide Safari. USDA organic infant formula contains pesticide labeled as nutrients. So the organic label is supposed to protect the consumer against GMOs and avoidable chemical exposures. The fact is that the certified infant formula manufacturers are not only being allowed to use a pesticide in their formulas, but are advertising it as a healthy mineral to unsuspecting consumers. Kind of like vitamin F, right? Vitamin F for fluoride. Fox reporters fired for reporting the truth about Monsanto milk. So Steve Wilson, Jane Egger uncovered the most of the milk in the U.S. and across some parts of the world. It's unsafe to drink to Monsanto's. It says here, Posilac, which has been proven to be a cancer-causing growth hormone known as short as BGH or BST, but they were fired for attempting to inform people the truth. Owen Patterson says UK must become global leader on GM crops. The environment minister says UK is falling behind trade partners. So it's all about competition, right? At the expense of people, their livelihood. Well, this a-hole is actually going to say, the environment minister, GM could be as important as the agricultural revolution. Nobel of Agriculture goes to Monsanto executive. The winners of the World Food Prize were announced at the U.S. State Department. It says here they're all pioneers in agricultural biotechnology. Canada approves Dow's new Enlist duo herbicide. Okay, it's controversial. This is seen as an alternative to Roundup Ready. Wearing a mask in Canada at a riot is now a crime. A riot, is that a protest or a riot? I guess they consider all protests to be riots. Most Americans don't trust newspapers and television. The journalist who died in the Hollywood crash said it sounded like a bomb went off, said a witness. Thank you.